Welcome to User Experience Design, a module on the MSc in Software Development. My name's Philip Hanna and I'll be the course instructor for this particular module. In terms of this video, we want to go through and to provide you with a reasonably high-level overview of what the course is about, what the learning outcomes are, how we'll approach our learning through a project, and how assessment will work, and how we're going to split and spread our time over the 10 weeks that this module will run across. So let's start off first of all by really sort of welcoming you to the module, and I really do mean it. Later on in the course, I'm actually going to encourage you to cut out anything at all that relates to happy talk through our designs. But I thought I'd get away here with how many, sort of 6 words or so, just welcoming you to the module. Hopefully you're going to find it quite an enjoyable and certainly an educational process. And hopefully it's something that's going to help you then improve as a developer and as a designer. So in terms of what this module is about, it's all about how we, primarily as developers, because we're looking at the MSc in software development, so you all will have experience of developing software. But we want to enrich this then to think about the people who use our software and what that means then for how we interact with it. And it also then help us better shape and design our applications to have that rich interface and that rich interaction. What we'll look at will go beyond the broad notion of interface design, and it links into an area known as user experience or user experience design. And you can see UXD, UED, there's different types of abbreviation for it. And it's a much richer, much broader area. It's about the wider experience of our users. And one of the key fundamental things about user experience design is that it is focused on our users, and that involves collecting their feedback, their evaluation, their experiences of using our software, and using that then to analyze it to bring about improvements. And these are things that we're going to focus on through this course. It's not going to simply be design an interface, rather we're going to design things and then get users involved, get their feedback on it, and use that to iteratively improve how we interact with them. In terms of user experience itself, so that is a well-defined term. The International Organization for Standards, ISO, they define it as a person's perceptions and responses that result from the use or anticipated use of a product, system, or service. It's defined really broadly here, and they really do mean it in a broad sense. That includes everything the user feels. So it's not only about the process, it's about their emotions, it's about what they prefer, it's about what they believe, it's about what they perceive. It is their physical, their psychological response to activities. And it's thinking about all of these things before they do it, whilst they're doing it, and after they do it. So when we think here about user experience, we mean it in the broadest possible sense. We're going to look at it with regard to software and how our software interfaces and interacts with our users. And that's important because ideally we want I'll maybe pose this question then. I mean, out of all of the software that you've used, how many times have you found software that you would say, I love that software, it is fantastic? How many times have you used software where you would go to somebody else and say, it's brilliant, these features are fantastic, they work perfectly, they get you to do this, they do that? How many times have you told people about, oh yeah, you should use this, it's really easy to do, oh, it's never let me down, 100% confident, 100% safe in it? So I'm guessing that not often is the answer to that particular question. So a lot of the software we do, it tends not to elicit very strong, very positive reactions in our users. But as a question, what if you did create software that elicited those reactions, those responses, that provided that experience for our users? Would it be popular? Would it be successful? Absolutely it would be. So there's a lot of things that we can look at here, and one of the things we want to always challenge ourselves about is not about how we currently do software, how software is currently used. is about how can we make it better? How can we get to a point where our users genuinely love and enthuse and are excited and are passionate and defend and promote all of our applications? Because ideally, that's what we would want our response to be with the users that we interact with, for many, many reasons. So we're going to look at this here. We're going to be focused specifically on software, and we're going to think about our users and what their motivations are going to be, how we can better understand that, and how we can better create software that works with their users, that supports their goals, that doesn't give them unnecessary or needless or pointless or unwelcome tasks or activities to do. In terms of learning outcomes then, so these are things that at the end of the module you'll have an opportunity to develop to be able to demonstrate. Let's just go through them because I think they set out a number of important elements about the things that we will explore, and also highlight what's important in terms of this course. What are going to be the key aspects then when we think about assessment that we will be looking at and putting our attention specifically on. So at the end of the module, you're going to have a better understanding, I hope, of how people perceive, think and act, particularly when using software. You're going to understand the importance of adopting a user-centric model. And we'll look at some user-centric design techniques. And user-centric, it probably is an overused term, but having users at the center of things. But I want to, hopefully through this course, develop a sort of a deeper, more impactful understanding of the importance of that. Not to just use it as a term, but to use it really as a value, a belief, something that drives our behaviors. You'll also understand a range of different technical techniques that we can use to create interfaces that work more effortlessly with the users. So we want to create interfaces that the user can just use and doesn't prevent them of a challenge. They understand how information's set out. They understand what this does. They can find things quickly. It's just really, really easy. And we'll look at some different techniques we can do to help us bring about and to create that type of interaction interface with our users. Really importantly, we'll also then look at a number of different ways of measuring our users' experience, of not only just designing things, but then looking and getting users involved with it to understand what are their experiences. How can we measure that? How can we capture it? And from the information that we collect, how can we analyze that? What conclusions can we draw? And what confidence can we attach to those conclusions? So that's going to be a really important element of the course, a really important element then of the project that you will do through the course. And the final bit, I mean, all of the other bits are Bob, so you'll understand this and understand that. But the final bit is the more significant one. For all of the things we've mentioned there, you'll be able to not only understand, but to put it into practice. If I give you a design brief, you'll be able to do all of these to iteratively deliver on that design brief, to create an interface, to improve it, to make it a better interaction with a group of users. So for learning in this module then, how are we going to achieve all of those learning outcomes? Well, I'll start off with a bold claim, mindful of the fact that you're probably sitting down watching this video. If you sit in lectures, if you watch videos, and this is mostly a distance-based module, so you'll be watching videos, it's a rubbish way of learning. It's not a good way of learning. You can listen to things, you can take away things from it. Does it result in meaningful learning? No, it doesn't. That's the blunt reality. We learn by doing. So I need to encourage the doing aspect. I want everybody in this course to listen to and understand things, but then actually to put them into practice. And it's by putting them into practice that you develop that much deeper understanding, and an understanding that will persist over time. How are we going to do this then? So it's going to be done through a project. It'll be a team-based project. So you will come together with fellow students in the module to form small teams of UX designers, user experience designers. And I'm going to link you in with a slightly larger group of users. So as a design team, you'll also have a group of users. And we're going to use an iterative design approach. We'll do things through a number of iterations. Through those you will do a bit of design, you'll do a bit of user testing, you'll look at the feedback from the users, and you'll iteratively improve. And we'll do that a couple of times, and then we'll submit in the submission at the end. Now, in terms of those users, where am I getting them from? That's also you as well. So the user group will also comprise students on this module. So it means that whilst you will be a member of a UX design team, alongside that you will be a member of 2 user groups for other UX design teams. That's important, and that's not just simply a way of me going, well, how do I find hundreds of users? It really is very useful to see things from both perspectives here. To see it both as a perspective as somebody who's designing an interface, and also from the perspective of a user, somebody who's using different interfaces. And I want to give you that perspective from these different angles. And in doing so, it's going to help you then as a UX designer, because you'll have more of that lived experience as a user. You'll understand some of the things that you found difficult as a user, some of the things you found confusing, some of the things that just didn't work for you. And you can then take those learning back to your own design process, and helps you then think about your users in a more deep, more meaningful way. Now, throughout all of this here, there's also going to be a small number of points where I'll ask you then to submit in individually your reflections on activities. So that's where I'm looking for you to take the theories and the principles, things you'll watch and learn through the videos and the directed reading, and to map those onto what you've been doing, to reflect upon it, to identify what things link into theories, to identify what you're learning from this here, what you think you want to do differently from it. And that individual reflection is really very important for me then to understand, and for you as well, to understand how we develop our skills around this here. How do we become better UX designers? So for course content, how are we going to break this up into a number of different areas? We've 4, it's really sort of 3 main sections that sort of covers the content of the course. The first one, which this video falls inside, is really just introducing the module, setting out how it's going to work, setting out how assessment will work, and things like that. So it's all structural stuff about the course. What are the learning outcomes? I mean, it's important. You want to listen to all of this here, but it's really just about the module. The second section then is going to be understanding people. We're going to think about how people see, how they think, how they listen, how they remember, how they make decisions. All of those different types of aspects which are really determined by the operation of our brain. And there are certain activities we can do perceptually effortlessly. It's just really easy to do. And there's other things we really struggle to doing. And we want to understand a little bit about the strengths and the weaknesses of our brain, because that will help us then in terms of our interactions with the users to make sure we're doing things that we are good at doing and avoiding things that we often struggle to do. Section 3 then goes beyond that to look at a very wide range of different type of design techniques, and this is a massive area, and we will cover a wide range of different topics and areas, quite often at a high level, but then with directed reading beyond that. So some of the things we're going to look at here are about our users and modeling and understanding their goals. We'll look at different aspects about how we can design systems. What are some of the principles? What are some of the particular approaches and techniques we can use? What are some of the more practical design advice that we can use? Section 4 then goes on to look at measuring usability. And this ties into the importance then of always involving our users. We may do an initial design. That's not job done. We want to then get a bunch of users experience of using that and to learn from it. Learn about the things that they get, learn about the things that they don't get, learn about the things that are easy, that are difficult, identify those improvements, and then to use their feedback to actually build in those improvements. And to do that, we're going to look at some statistical techniques as well, because generally speaking, the information will involve a small group of users, and that small group we assume is representative of that much larger group of all users. But because we're dealing with a small group, we have to think about statistical confidence. If we discover something inside that group, how confident can we be that that will be reflective of the wider group. So we'll look at some statistical techniques that we can use to better, more meaningfully understand our data. So for directed reading, there is a lot. There's a number of key books that this course is closely based around, and then there's a number of other ones I would recommend that you do have an explore of. User experience design, it is a very, very broad, very deep topic. So really we are just touching upon a number of different aspects through this course. But really good core books to get. You can see two of them here. One is Copper's About Face. The other one's then is Krug's Don't Make Me Think. So they're good, easy reads. Do get those, please, because they're really important ones to have a look at. Equally, Measuring the User Experience, that's another one we rely upon heavily. Really, really useful one to get in terms of all of the different types of experimental technique that we can use to measure, to quantify, to qualify the experience of our users as they interact with our software. So there are three key textbooks that will closely base the course on. Another three I would strongly recommend to explore is A Project Guide to UX Design, 100 Things Every Designer Needs to Know About People, and The Design of Everyday Things. They're, particularly the last two, they're really good reads to have because they tell us more about ourselves. They tell us more about how objects are designed, how we interact with activities. And the Project Guide to UX Design, again, that's a good one about thinking about some of the project-related aspects, about how we can go about designing and better designing our interactions with our users. So that really brings us on then to think about the project that we have inside the course. And we've highlighted this is going to be the key element through which you will learn on the module. So we want to break down how the project is going to be structured, what are the activities that you'll do, what are the deliverables, and what's the assessment going to be like for the project. So in terms of an overview of what it's about, we've already mentioned you'll be part of a small team. It's going to be 5, it's going to be the team size of UX designers. And I'm going to give you a design, sort of a project brief really. It's going to be quite short, quite high level. Hopefully you'll find the project briefs interesting. They're not going to be boring things. They'll be quite novel. They should be the kind of thing that will cause you to pause and to think, oh, how would I do that? They'll all be very open-ended. So in this sense, there is no notion of a right or a wrong answer. None whatsoever. These are really about giving you a broad idea and letting you have a broad freedom to explore the things that you want to do. You can take it in the way that you want to, but in doing so, you want to make sure you're informed by the feedback of your users. As to the user group, you'll have 10 users, 10 other students that will form your user group that you can explore ideas, you can evaluate things, you can ask them to test out some of the assumptions or to get their opinions and feedback on your design ideas. The project's going to run over a period of 6 weeks. We'll split it into sort of 3 sort of stages or iterations inside that. So in terms of breaking it down, we'll have a setup phase first of all. And this will happen at the start of the module, obviously enough. I'm going to ask you to self-select into groups of 5 students. So get together into groups of 5. I'll offer a brokering service. So if anybody wants a bit of help and support to join up, or you might have like a team of 2 with a team of 3, we'll put people together. So I'll offer a brokering service just to help that process of team formation. Once you're into teams, I will then release a list of different project briefs. So there'll be 10, 15 or so on that. And I'm going to ask teams then to pick their top 3 and to rank them in terms of first, second and third preference. Now, I'm hopeful that most teams will get their top preference. If not the top, absolutely the second. It's not an issue if 2 teams end up with the same project. That's fine. But there's one thing I want to ensure, and this ties into the final point. So whenever teams have been assigned a project, I'm then going to assign people to 2 user groups. But I want to make sure then for the user group you're assigned to, it's for a team that's doing a project different than the one that your design team's working on. So in that sense, you'll have experience of 3 different projects. 1 as a designer for something, and then 2 as user groups for other types of projects. So spread them around. So because of that, I can't have a situation where every single team picks exactly the same one, and because then I don't have that ability to bring about that diversity. So hopefully teams should get their first choice. They absolutely will get their first choice if there's a good variation across, say, the 10 or 15 project briefs, and I'm anticipating that's likely to be the case. But small print is that I may need to go for your second or third preference if needed. In terms of the user group formation, this is just going to be, I'll do that assignment. It will be semi-random in the sense that I will just assign you to 2 other groups just to make sure that they're different groups and they're not the same as the UX design project you're working on. But that will be my random assignment. So you'll find yourselves then a couple of weeks into the module, knowing what your UX design team is, knowing what your selected project brief is, and then being part of 2 other design teams in terms of the user groups. Once we've got things set up, we will move into our initial design. So this is really the first proper iteration. And you'll do a number of things through this. There'll be a little bit of time then to think about the project brief and to develop it, to identify some of the key questions around, okay, how are we going to interact with our users? How might we want to design this? What are the important things? What are the mental models that our users are using? And so on and so forth. So that's a little bit of design. Alongside that, because we're all about testing things with the users, I'll also want you to design and create a set of tests or activities that you can do with your user group. Now, you can't use your users for several hours. There's going to be a maximum of 30 minutes per user. That's your window of opportunity for doing activities with an individual user. And it's up to you what you do inside that up to 30 minutes in terms of best shaping or informing your design technique. So again, it's entirely up to you. But I want you to design those activities as well. After you've done your initial design, you've designed your user activities, you'll then actually go and do the user testing. You'll go to your group of 10-ish users and you'll get them to carry out whatever activities that you have done, collecting feedback and then analyzing that feedback. So whenever you get feedback from the users, you want to analyze it to say, well, what does this mean? What have we learned from it? What insights has it provided? How are we going to improve and build upon the design that we currently have? And that then leads into the second iteration, which is the refined design, unsurprisingly. So in that sense, it's very similar to the first one. You'll do more design, but you're going to have hopefully a more informed position at that point. You can build upon your ideas, you can elaborate upon them. You'll also then come up with another set of user activities. Again, maximum of 30 minutes per user. So you'll iterate, improve your design, come up with a new set of user tests, and then you've got 30 minutes per user to go through and do those tests. You'll get some results, some feedback, you'll analyze that. So again, it's a similar process. What have you learned? What does that mean then for how you can improve the design that you're doing? And the third phase, given the fact we've only got 6 weeks, so this is really just where we would bring our iterations to an end within the confines of this module. So at that point, we're looking for you to do your final design and then to submit in the project at the end of it. When we're thinking about project deliverables, so these are the things that you will output and submit, and also on which the assessment will then occur. And we'll talk about assessment after this. There's an important aspect to this here. There is no expected format. There's no predefined or predetermined, you must provide this, you must provide that in terms of your design artifacts. It is whatever you think is appropriate for the design that you are doing. It could be sketches by hand, it could be photographs, it could be documents, it could be videos. It's all good. It's whatever you think is right for your design process. And that's really, really important. Not going in here with any expectations in terms of format or structure for the artifacts, the ways that you create your design, the ways that you do your tests. Each team on Canvas, you'll have an upload area. So you can go into that there, and you can simply put your materials into that upload area. So then it's available for the assessment team to have a look at. In terms of the feedback that you collect from the user and the analysis that you do on it. So in terms of this here, we will have those elements. You'll also put it into the Canvas site as well. So that for the initial, for the refined, and for the final design is where you will store the things that you do. Now, you don't need to go out of your way to artificially enrich them. Just whatever you do, put them into that folder. That's all we need. Alongside that, there will be individual elements, I've mentioned this here, where we will ask you to engage in pieces of reflection. So let's just itemize the things then that will be created through the project. So in terms of the initial design phase, so initial, refined, and final. Initial is where we'll start off. In terms of the initial design and the user testing design, you will create some initial materials, some diagrams, sketches, whatever you want to do. It's just whatever it is, whatever is created, that's what it is. That's it. You'll create some initial test materials, things you'll want to test with your user. You'll generate some test results. So whenever you've worked with your user and you've got some feedback from them, you'll want to capture this. And whatever that is, that's going to be part of your initial design submission. And I'm asking all teams, and this is where you see that there is then, the stuff that's above, design materials, test results, it's just whatever it is. I do want each team then to provide a maximum of 2 pages, maximum, no more, where you analyze and present a summary of the findings from your test results. So that's something that I'm going to ask the team to do, just up to a couple of pages to say that, okay, well, we did this initial design stuff, we designed this experimentation, we did stuff with the users, and we got this information, and here's what it means. Here's the analysis, here's the outcomes from that, in no more than 2 pages. So it's brief, it's simple, it's just the key points. Alongside that, there will be a precise forms for these ones. There's also going to be one for agreed contribution. And this is simply a factual account of who did what. It's team agreed, so the whole team has to do this and has to agree to this. It's simply a matter then of, okay, so that so-and-so did this bit and so-and-so did that bit. It's just to get a bit of an understanding as to who was involved in different activities through the project. And it's fine if you want to say, okay, oh yeah, these 3 people worked in that. That's fine as well. It's just a way to understand what each person did. What was their contribution to the initial design? Finally, at the bottom of this screen as well, everybody individually, so this will be an individual piece, will be asked to submit a 1 page. It's not big, it's just a single page that contains their reflections on the initial design. It's their thoughts about how it went. And I'm looking here for you to link the things that you did, to think deeply, to think reflectively in terms of the theories, the principles, the practice, how you did it, how you implemented it. What are the things you've learned through this here? How are you seeing things develop? So it's a simple 1 page reflection that I'll ask everybody to submit individually. Going on to the refined design phase, so this after the initial, we've got the refined, it's more or less exactly the same set of deliverables, but for that refined phase. So I'm still going to look for you to put in your design materials, your test materials, your test results, and again, that's whatever it is that's right for your project. I'll ask the team then, so this is a whole team, to submit in a maximum of 2 pages test analysis. So you've done all of this here, you've done the test, you've got the results. What does it mean? Maximum 2 pages. Again, I'm going to ask the team to agree the contribution. It'll be done at a team level, openly. A simple factual account of who did what, nothing more than that. And I'm going to ask everybody individually to submit in a 1 page, well, what are your reflections in this here? How do you link the theory and principles to what was done? And then the final bit, final design, we don't have any user testing here. It's just, okay, we've done our initial, we've done our refined. Final design is, okay, so you've learned something through the refined design, feedback from your users, update your final design. That's it. And then submit that in. And again, whatever format is appropriate for whatever project you're doing. Final set of agreed contributions and 1 final piece of individual reflection. So this is at the end of the module. Now this is 3 pages, so it's a bit longer, and I'm going to ask you then to think more holistically across the whole project, linking theory, practice, linking it all together. What are the insights that you have got? And I'll ask you here, in the previous reflections is all about your team and what your experiences of going through the initial and refined design. For the final reflection, I want you to think and to link everything together, both as a UX designer and also then to pull in your experiences of acting as a user in the other teams. So you've got a bit more space just to think more deeply and more broadly across the overarching course. So that's everything that goes in. There's a fair amount of different bits, but each bit really should be quite straightforward. The material that you're developing as you go through the project, that's all I need to get to see. Like I said, I have no expectations as to format. It doesn't have to be highly polished because, again, that's not an expectation. We're using an iterative design process, so the quality should improve over time. It doesn't have to be highly polished for the first one. It's just things that help you get moving. Assessment then, and this is how we think about, okay, out of all of those different things that we hand in, that we capture through the project, how are we going to take those, map them onto the learning outcomes that we identified earlier on, and then arrive at some sort of final mark at the end. There's 2 key important elements when we're trying to identify an individual mark. And this is really important to say, because even though you are working as a team, the marks that people get will be individualized based on their contributions, based on their reflections. There is no team mark. There is no peer distributed mark. It is based on what each person does and the depth of thought that each person has demonstrated through their reflections. So just to reiterate this in, so the top point is the extent and quality. So extent being, how much did the person do, and what was the quality of that, of their contributions to the team project through the initial, refined and final design phases. That includes the contribution to the design elements, the contribution to the user experimentation elements, the contribution to the analysis of results elements. It's all of those parts is in each phase. And it's not to say that everybody needs to do all of those 3 parts. Some people focus more on doing the design, some people focus more on doing the user experimentation. That's fine. But I'm looking for each of these phases, just what each person did. What was the extent and what was the quality of their contribution? Second bit then is the depth and quality of the individual reflections. So this is where you take the theories and the principles that we'll cover through the videos and cover through the directed reading, and I want you to link them into the things that you did and the outcomes, things that happened, things that you observed, to link these things together. I'm also looking for you to think about this constructively in terms of, okay, if we were to do it better, here's what we would do, and to be constructively critical, to identify things that definitely would make it better, where you're saying, okay, we didn't do this as well as we could be, but it's constructive, because if you recognize that it could be done better, that's a really useful insight from my point of view, because I know then that it's only a matter of you following and doing that in the future. How are we going to link them together? Well, we'll see that on this slide here. So we've got 3 elements. We've got our initial design going on to the refined design, then going into the final design. And for the initial design, we have 10% available for the design materials, test materials, test results, and test analysis. So 10 marks for that. Now, the design materials, test materials, and test results, they're just things you'll do normally. I'm not asking you to write them up in any particular way, just to take what you've done through the project, submit the thing in. There will be then this 2-page team-based one based on the analysis, and then there's a agreed contribution who did what. But 10 marks, up to 10 marks for that. Individual reflection then, so the depth and quality of individual reflection, 10% of the module mark will come from that. These are sort of lower weighted because it's the first iteration in it, so just to keep it reasonably low, just to give people a chance then to build activities up. The one exception to that is reflection. So reflections are 10, 10, and 30, and that sort of reflects the amount of space that you have available for the reflection. For the refined design then, so it's similar types of content and a similar sort of elements that we're assessing, but 20% available for that. So hopefully at that point, people have had a chance to settle into the project, that patterns of practice have become more established, but 20% available for individually for the extent and the quality of people's contribution to that phase. And for the individual reflection, 10% available for that. For the final design, so the final design, it doesn't include test materials or test results or test analysis because it's just the design itself. So 20% available for the final design materials, again based on individual contribution to that. And the larger reflection that we have at the end, the individual reflection, 30% for this. If you add the things up, it'll work out at 50% based on your individual thoughts and reflections, and 50% based on your contribution to the team through the initial, refined, and final design phases. Okay, module schedule then hopefully takes all of the things we talked about here and puts them against a timeline. So this module is 10 weeks in duration. So how are we going to do all of the things we've outlined within those 10 weeks? So we can see the weeks here down the slide from 1 to 10. For the first 3 weeks, first week's going to be really sort of team formation, then we'll release the projects, and we'll look at sort of user group formation as well, saying to people you're in a certain group. And really we have sort of 4 weeks for doing that there, but we will try to do it in the first 3 weeks by way of getting things set up. Really, really importantly, there is a whole bunch of videos, and even though I said you don't really learn through videos, you learn by doing, the videos contain a lot of the theories and the suggestions and the advice, so you will want to work your way through them. So there's 4 weeks at the start where I'm assuming you will work your way through the videos, you'll pick up on those, you'll have a look at the directed reading, and there's a chance then to build them. Of course you can go back and refer to them and look at things again as you go through this here, but the first 4 weeks are our opportunity to explore this in good depth. As this module is largely self-directed, because your MSc students, you're at the end of the MSc program, the notion of independent self-directed learning is really important. So there's going to be, it's each individual's responsibility to manage his or her time through this process. Week 5 and week 6 set aside for that initial design and initial user testing design. And there's sort of 2 weeks for that, and then week 7 we have 1 week for actually working with the users to do your up to 30 minutes with them to get the results, to analyze the results. And the reason we sort of split those over 3 weeks is that it's probably going to take most teams a little bit more time at the start just to build up the momentum, to build up how they want to practice the techniques that they want to use. So end of week 6 we'll have upload then our design materials and test materials. End of week 7 upload our test results and the analysis with the great contribution. And at that point at the end of week 7, probably going into week 8, we'll have asked people for their individual reflection. Week 8 and week 9 is where we're into the refined design phase. So 1 week just to do the refined design, do the user testing. And then the next week after that to actually execute the tests and to look at the analysis of the results. And again, we'll submit in the relevant bits from that. And then week 10 is the final week for just rounding things off, to iterating on the design, and to submit in then the project along with your individual reflection at the end of the module. So that's how we'll split time across the weeks that we have available. So what next? What should you do next? And as I've mentioned, for this module, because of the level of study you're at, because it is in the sort of the summer third semester period of the MSc, it is all about independent learning. It's all about you demonstrating that you can take your learning through the rest of the MSc and been able to apply and to build upon it. So have a think about this here. Have a think about how you want to form things. If you want to delve into some of those aspects about group formation beforehand, absolutely to do so. The course material will be available before the start of the course. So as soon as you want to delve into having a look at the course materials and exploring those. I hope it will be an enjoyable course. I should say that in terms of the timeline, the 6 weeks over which the project will run, we are looking more for quality over quantity. You will be doing this alongside another project as well. So I don't want people to feel they need to do a lot of material. Absolutely not the case. We're looking for fairly simple designs here, but I want you to do it more thinking about the quality of activities than more is better. Not the case here. Quality is the most important bit. As always in this here, if you do have any thoughts, any queries, any concerns, please simply just do get in contact and we'll be happy then to explore those. In terms of where you want to go after this here, I would suggest that you delve more into the course. Go to the Canvas course, have a look at the content there, and take it as you wish to in terms of your next steps.